Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock in the Middle East. You're watching i24 News with a special edition this hour. Let's take you live to Nice and the scene of last night's horrific attack. Today we can see heightened security and a closed-off area as the street is empty. French Prime Minister Manuel Valls declares 3 days of national mourning following the attack in Nice that killed at least 84 people and injured scores others. Among the dead, 10 children, 18 of the wounded are still in critical condition. Pictures that came in this morning from the coastal resort showed the truck that was used to carry out the attack with many bullets through its shield. Police announced they have found the ID of the 31-year-old Frenchman of Tunisian origin, but a resident of Nice, and have taken a mobile phone from the scene believed to belong to the attacker. Investigators are seen arriving at the scene this morning as the shattered truck remained in place, but now all we can see are the heightened security at the very place of the attack, where yesterday's crowds were enjoying celebrations of Bastille Day when the truck plowed through them at approximately 50 kilometers an hour before being shot and stopped only 2 kilometers later. The truck was also filled with ammunitions and explosives, which could point at a plan for an even greater attack. Extremely graphic video from the scene, unfit for television, showed bodies sprawled on the streets, many in pools of blood, as people ran past in horror. French President François Hollande said the attack was an undeniable terrorist nature and vowed to fight the jihadists as the country extends its state of emergency by 3 more months. No group has claimed responsibility so far. And now we're going to go to our correspondent and i24 News contributor, Peter Humi, who is in France covering the story throughout the day. What's the latest?
Well, the very latest information that I have is that 2 of the 84 dead as a result of the attack yesterday evening, Thursday evening in Nice. 2 of them have, according to American and French officials, been identified as American citizens. As you mentioned, 10 children also amongst the dead, and presumably also amongst the wounded as well. Of course, hundreds were affected by this act of terror. 18 are gravely ill in hospital in very serious condition, and there are dozens of others that continue to undergo treatment but are believed to be out of any kind of physical danger. The government has announced 3 days of official mourning beginning tomorrow, Saturday, and ending on late Monday evening of next week. Reinforcements are being sent, not just military and police, but also forensic experts, technical experts, to help the investigation on the site of the attack, the Promenade des Anglais, which is a very popular seafront of Nice, one of the most famous seafronts on all of the Côte d'Azur in southern France, very popular with visitors, especially this time of year, and especially on Bastille Day, when crowds had gathered along that seafront, along the Promenade des Anglais, to watch the fireworks that are held throughout the country on the 14th of July.
Of course. And Peter, we know that the investigation is, of course, ongoing, and more details will become available as it comes along. However, the ammunitions and explosives that were in the truck, is there any lead or any idea why these ammunitions were in the truck and what the attacker was planning to do with these ammunitions? Because at the end of the day, he made the truck his weapon, but it could have been much, much worse.
Well, in fact, that's a very good question. And according to some media reports, the grenade that was found in the back of the truck was obsolete and inoperable, and at least 2 rifles or possibly automatic weapons were said by some sources say these were imitation or possibly toys. So he seemed, the only what he had was one that he had with him in the cabin, which once his truck was he opened fire on the police, or exchanged fire on the police, until he was killed by the municipal police. In fact, it was the city police that opened fire, and as you may have seen on some of the video, his windscreen is riddled with bullet holes. So it appears that he was acting alone, probably amateur. Didn't seem to be terribly well organized, but it shows you how almost easy it is to carry out this kind of attack.
With a very, very slow response after 2 kilometers of him going over and driving over crowds of people.
Well, I mean, you have a truck of that size weighing several tons and speed as it goes along. It's pretty difficult to stop that unless you have some, very, very solid barrier, which obviously wasn't in place. It was a makeshift barrier to stop cars going along the road during display. Obviously, it's not able to stop anything of any kind of weight, certainly not a vehicle the size of the truck. And
as you mentioned, it all takes place on Bastille Day, on the national holiday, during the time of the fireworks, which were probably a very big distraction, which is maybe the reason why he wasn't stopped earlier. Peter Humi, I do want to thank you. At this point, we'll be back with you later in the day. And now we're going to go live to Tel Aviv, where our correspondent and editor, Ron Friedman, stands by outside of the French embassy. Any signs of movement there?
Hi, Michal. Yes, I'm here really on the Tel Aviv beach line, outside, across the street from the French embassy. Behind me, you can see the French flag waving there. This is actually the location of a Bastille Day celebration for embassy and guests last night. It was here that all the participants heard the shocking news coming out of Nice. Today, no sense of tragedy here. Life in Tel Aviv, as you can see behind me, is carrying on. Many tourists in the street. Many of them actually people visiting from France. And the embassy itself, on my right, if we can ask our cameraman, he's panning up now. You can see the only sign of solidarity or of the tragedy that happened is the French flag, which is now flying at half-mast, just out of respect for the fallen. Throughout the day here in Israel, we've heard many political reactions, lots of condemnations from all across the political spectrum. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu expressed his condolences to the event, expressed solidarity with the French people, vowing Israel's support to do anything in its power to help bring the perpetrators and the people who backed them to justice, and to help in general in the war on terror. I mean, Israel, as we all know, has experienced its fair share of terror attacks, even in the last few weeks, similar to France, similar to other European countries over the last year. Later on today, there's going to be a solidarity march, not here in Tel Aviv, but in Netanya, home to a large French immigrant community. They're going to be marching from Independence Square there in Netanya, and expressing solidarity with the French people.
So at the moment, no sign of a floral tribute, and life is moving on. As you mentioned, Ron, maybe this is the Israeli spirit, and maybe this is a spirit of a country that is used to lone wolf attacks. Though they are saying that the reaction in Israel would have been much faster, some kind of criticism to French security. Are you receiving any reactions from within the French embassy this morning?
No, they haven't issued any statements to the press yet. The embassy appears to be open, but we haven't been granted access.
Ron Friedman, we'll be back with you later today. Thank you for weighing in, and still in studio with me, Owen Alterman, Mohammed Al-Qasim. Thank you once again. And we're looking at all these reactions coming in. As you mentioned, Owen, terror is terror is terror. Prime Minister Netanyahu is trying to say that it's exactly the same terror as in Israel. The Middle Eastern regimes are also, other Middle Eastern regimes are saying that we are the victim, we are on the same side, and this is actually a problem of extremism and jihadism. Are the people agreeing with this idea?
Well, to be quite honest with you, it's somewhat sad that some regimes, some officials are trying to take advantage of these attacks and invest in them and capitalize on them for their own benefits, whether it's the Arab regimes throughout the Middle East or whether it's Israel. This is, again, a global issue. It's not one country's issue. We have seen that these terrorists have been able and capable of attacking in the hearts of many, many countries, including here, whether in Jordan, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Lebanon, Iraq, France, the United States. This is an international issue. This is not one exclusive problem for one country, but every country now and every government is trying to justify why it's taking certain measures within its country to justify its actions by saying that we are also the victims. We have seen that even the Syrian government now saying that we have been telling you so for quite some time, for the last 5 years, that we are victim of terrorism, and this is basically what we have faced and experienced for the last last 5 years. What you're seeing here, what we've warned you for the last 5 years, now you're seeing we've been going through it. So every country is trying to claim or make this association and also connect with France and other countries that faces these kind of attacks.
And also interesting to note, before when we were speaking to Meir Chaviv, he only mentioned European countries, Israel experiencing this, but just in Iraq during the month of Ramadan, this same sort of attack conducted by either IS or IS ideology targets Muslims as well, and for some reason this is not a message that is showing through in the global media.
Michal, let's do some self-criticism here. We did not break into news 2 weeks ago when the attacks in Baghdad took place. We have three times as many victims that fall into Islamic State terrorism that day than today, and they're all humans, whether it's in Paris, in Nice, in Istanbul, in Baghdad, in Jordan, in Israel, anywhere else. And we did not break into news when it took place in Baghdad, but we are breaking in news when it took place in Nice, in France. And this is why some Arab countries are saying now we're publicly voicing our opinions. For quite some time, we did not hear any official statements until maybe a day or two later, whether from the Palestinian Authority, from the Jordanian government, from Saudi Arabia, from the Gulf countries, from Lebanon, from anywhere in the Arab world or even the Muslim world to come out condemning and denouncing these attacks. Now they're even faster than any other government or Western government is supporting the French government and criticizing, because they're saying we are victims too.
And the media sure has a role. Just hold that thought. We're going to take you back to the live images from Nice as we see some French dignitaries arriving at this hour. So we would like to follow through with this live footage coming in from the very place of the attack yesterday, from the resort that is known for its beautiful scenery and now, unfortunately, is known for bloodshed. Oh, and this is a very, very big moment for any leadership, any president or prime minister. This is a test, really.
Oh, sure. I want to go back to one thing that Mohammed was said and pick up on something that Ron said, because I think they're very important. First of all, this is obviously a terrible tragedy to the people who lost their lives, to the people who are injured. But terrorism is also a political act. So it's to be expected that there are political, or at least politically oriented reactions to it. Carefully worded, but still political. And it's part of the dynamic, whether for better or worse, of how these events unfold.
Well, political or religious extremism, if that's what you mean.
And going back to something that Ron said, which I think is very, very important, this event is another reminder, or could be another reminder, that the situation, the difficult situation for French Jews, that situation has not been resolved. The reason that there is a rally tomorrow night in Netanya, of all places, because of the large French immigrant community there. That's a community that's come to Israel in the last 10 years. And it's come to Israel because of, in large part, because of events in France. It's true that this event was not targeted at a Jewish target. It's not like the Hyper Kasher event of a year and a half ago. But it is still a reminder of the tension in France that surrounds the issue of Islamic extremism and that surrounds the issue of the rise of the far right, in which case the Jewish community finds itself caught in the middle. So it will be interesting to see, and we've seen a lot of changes on the ground in Israel from this. In addition to Netanya and Tel Aviv itself, as Ron said, many, many French Jewish tourists expected to come here for the August holidays in a few weeks. But going back to the footage we're seeing, sure, this is a big test of leadership. Many are calling it a big test of leadership for President Hollande. And yes, elections in France not exactly around the corner, but only 9 months away.
Absolutely, and we will keep our eyes on this footage coming in from Nice once something interesting and once we see the dignitaries themselves, we'll be back. But at the moment, we're joined by Nitzan Uriel, a Brigadier General and the former head of the Center for Counterterrorism Bureau in the Prime Minister's office. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon.